So when we talk about funding and crowdfunding, I normally would ask the audience who already has experience in crowdfunding or crowd investing. And I would now suggest that nobody has experience, so I start as if nobody has experience, right? So how is it that crowdfunding is something where banks worldwide are really afraid of? Why are these huge corporations and these huge lobbyists afraid of something that is swarm, that individuals of us together can make happen in order to fund anything? It is because of transparency, and this is the solution. It is because normally banking and transparency is not something that is originally working together. And that is the reason why all banking or banking near institutions fear crowdfunding at the moment and try to find a solution how to integrate crowdfunding or crowd in investing within their portfolio. When we talk about crowdfunding, then in Germany there is something happening which is very, very special, because in Germany is the only country worldwide who is differentiating between crowdfunding and crowd innovation. I don't know where this differentiation comes from, but the Germans try to differentiate the seriousness of investment they take and then call it crowd investing. So the more serious they are in terms of equity they put in and in terms of seriousness on return on investment, they then pronounce it crowd investing. So when it comes to understanding the funding dynamics, and this is what I was briefed to tell you about, is normally that you know a little bit about crowdfunding already. So let's assume we're all totally literate in terms of crowdfunding. Then we would say, how do I understand the crowd? Meaning, why are people investing into startups, into ideas, or into innovation, or even into products like at Kickstarter, where you never have seen the product before. You have just seen a rendering, and you get the permission maybe to get earlier in advance the product and then use it for you. So why are those people doing it? And why are they not doing it 50 years ago? All right? So when we talk about crowdfunding, there is a history involved, and I guess you all have heard about the story of the Statue of Liberty, and that one was already crowdfunded. However, when we want to understand the crowd, we have to look into a more widened space, because it's all interconnected. Crowd itself is behaving through the mobile end devices, like the smartphones that everybody has. And these people are enabling not only in Germany, they're enabling in India and everywhere else. And to tell the truth, I just have been to the BAMS, which is the Bundesministerium für Arbeit und Soziales, and they are thinking right now about how they can leverage the existing people fleeing from Syria through crowdsourcing into new models of work on the easy part, because they all are literate how to use a smartphone. So you see, there is a dynamics in the future of work too that people are more open to discuss. So it's crowdsourcing in terms of how is work be interpreted now and in the future as a mobility concept. It's about crowd wisdom. How can a crowd or a swarm can predict future happenings? Companies like Recorded Future in New York, ironically co-invested by the NSA, are into that business, looking into the crowd to foresee happenings in different areas in the world. Not only stock exchange, but anything that could happen in the future. So crowd wisdom is helping you as a company, as a startup, or even as a small, medium-sized enterprise, to predict future decisions and to help to make the right decision, hopefully. When it comes to crowd innovation, and this is what I thought is basically imminent to an ERR, to an automotive industry, it's all about innovation. If the automotive, as an old school model, with a motor that is basically driven by fossil fuel, is not innovating itself permanently, then you are doomed. Nothing will happen. So crowd innovation is basically not only your customer helping you, it's about a heterogeneous group of people, not dependent on time or location, helping you 24/7, 365 days a year, how to be more innovative. And if you understand that, and if you're open and oversee your corporate literally rights on IP, your intellectual property, then there is a chance that the crowd will give you something back that will help you and your company to be more innovative and more agile. So how is a crowd defined? The crowd is defined by a heterogeneous group of people, meaning there is no focus on a specific group. To give you an example, if I would be a chemical industry SME and I want to find out more about possible solutions to problems which I haven't solved over the last 10 or 20 years through the crowd, then I'm not choosing just chemical attired people to solve the problem. The solution lies in the heterogeneously, lies in the crowd, that you really select everybody. And a customer of ours, being a chemical industry SME, a small hidden champion with about 100 million in revenue, looked into a problem, and the problem was solved by a Japanese chemical guy, 76 years old, and a retired chemical guy, right? This means also there is an impact in a social behavior. Why are we keeping away our mentors, our people who have decades of experience in elderly homes? Why are we not including them into a crowd, which would make the crowd even more heterogeneously as before? There is no geospecific definition, and this is of course a fear factor for every politic and politician, saying I want to have my own rights in terms of governance, work, and social setup within my country. But we are talking about cross-border innovation. So it comes from Asia, it can come from the USA, it can come from Europe, it even can come from the Eskimos at the North Pole if they are literate and want to be part of it. So there is no geo-specific definition. It can happen anytime, and what I think beauty of everything in crowdsourcing and crowdfunding is there are no restrictions. It doesn't matter if you have a religion X, Y, or Z. It doesn't matter if you are blue, green, or red, or brown. It doesn't matter if you're a woman or a man. Everything is just pure to one common thing, a common goal. So the common goal is driving the crowd, and it's very social. So when it comes to motivation, we asked, where are the people who are more engaged to participate as the others? And if you look into the old or a driven marketing approach of the 19-9-1 rule, that 90% are the one who watch, and 9% are the one who interact, and 1% are the one who act. This is the old rule. But we are on the internet, so we want to throw another adaptation in it, and it's the ones who share. Because the people who share are just a click away to get you viral. So sharing is a new percent that you want to watch. And a person called Lee looked at it 2010. And I don't want to disturb you with the numbers, but what she found out is that the most motivated crowds are globally in the BRIC countries. That these countries are the countries who are not only actively participating, but also telling about their participation to all their friends to their crowd, to their intersections, which means, of course, for you, in terms of driving the dynamics, it's the right target. And the BRIC countries, just one example, look at Germany. 69% of watchers, just 26 are producers. You want to go for the producers and the sharers. If you just drive that to, for example, India or China, let's do China, 86% of watchers. That's a lot, but 59% are creators, are producers. And this is a very strong sign that China is just in the beginning of the maker movement on the crowd movement, because they are strongly driven by production, producing ideas and sharing those. So if you understand the motivation behind the 99-1 rule, and if that is the next level of motivation, we looked into a research motivation and asked, what are the behaviors to drive the crowd? We know it's intrinsic, we know it's extrinsic, and we know it's social, mostly social driven. So we tried to put words on that, easy words, and say, is it really the fun, the novelty, the product innovativeness, and all those gender or age to drive an investment in crowdfunding? Not only the size, but also the act of investing. So what makes somebody really able to crowdfund something? And we found out, interestingly, after the framework, in a revised version, that definitely there is a behavior which is willingness to help, being part of something, trusting the project founders, personal connection, and the gender, which is influencing massively why and if people crowdfund your project or your endeavor. And even more interestingly, when we ask about the size of investment, we found out that men, for example, are willing to give more, but in a shorter decision time, so they are more impulse driven. Of course, you would say that's normal, but we proved it. And we found out that women are buying higher tickets, especially when it comes to real estate crowdfunding, but they evaluate their investment prior more intensively. This is why in our consulting work, we normally say to the ones who wanted to build up a real estate crowdfunding platform, target the women. Even they are not maybe not the active part in the household when it comes to income, they're the ones who are deciding on the larger investment tickets. So if we understand the motivation, and if we understand the crowd, where they're coming from, in the next step, we should look into investing versus funding versus the crowd, because these are the three playing fields that you want to make sure you have access and power on. So if you are a startup, and we are here in a startup environment, you normally have this scenario, and I think you have seen it thousands of times. You have the friends, family, and normally the fools who are giving you money first. You burn the money, you need more money, and then you go for money which is normally coming from the public sector. You go for business angels, for VC, and then alternative funding. And this is basically the curve telling you when you make a profit, right? And you see, interesting enough, crowdfunding is now developing into a prospective customer, going right into aggressive mode for business angels and VCs, especially after the new KAS, Kleinanlegerschutzgesetz, in Germany. Because now you have the possibility to really invest larger sums and drive your investments up to a couple of million euros with the crowd, which was not possible before. Which means for you, in terms of equity, Eigenkapital, if it's driving your equity and if it's raising your equity, then you have your better position in terms of positioning your contract with your VC or your follow-up investor. It makes you on a way better stand. And the crowd, driven by social behavior, is not normally looking on return on investment in the primary case. They're looking into being part of it. We learned that prior when we looked into the motivation. So how would somebody react? And we asked the crowd, startups, founders who wanted to do crowdfunding, what alternative funding sources did you really look for? And was this lookout successful or not? And this is after having a first crowdfunding campaign. And they said most successful was the follow-up campaign, which means the level of trust a crowd has is very, very, very substantial. And you can penetrate that trust again if you have a version 2, 3, or whatever. You have to treat your crowd, and there is a saying, when you love your crowd, the crowd loves you back. And this is true. The crowd is really giving you a lot of love in terms of following you back. Of course, if you have a grant by a government, there is a no known success rate. There is no unsuccessful. It's successful because you're granted, and then you get the money. Interesting is that angel investors and relatives of friends, and even other investors, are highly, in comparison to the crowd, highly more relative to unsuccessful follow-up investments than the crowd. So the learning on that is, if you have an established swarm or crowd, a fellowship mostly driven out of brick states, which are more in sharing, which we learned prior, then you have a substantial crowd where you can rely on even your follow-up investments. So what are we talking about? What are the numbers? What is this guy on stage talking about? Is it small? Is it large? What sums are we talking about? And we looked as an association together with the University of Cambridge into some numbers from last year. And if you look at the growth rate, and I think this is the most predominant part, it's still in the 3-digit millions. So it's not about super huge. It's about 1 billion, 2 billion together. However, all differentiated crowd lending, equity crowdfunding, reward-based crowdfunding, P2P consumer lending are aggressively growing by over 100 and 200%. And we will see this acceleration curve. It's like a hockey stick, basically, in the next years. And I'm guaranteeing you, when we see you again in next year or the year following, the numbers will be massive, especially if one bank is starting to do business with it. So how can you leverage this potential for you and your business? And this is basically the whole truth about crowd. This is how you drive it, and this is how you win it. And you can read a lot of books, but this is it. So basically, the people. So it's about the crowd economy, it's about empowering the people, and it's about giving those people not only a virtual power, saying, all right, thank you very much for your money and goodbye, but involving them as empowered people in every stage on the process and giving them a chance to be part of it. It's inclusive, it's disruptive, and it's human-centric. It reads very easy, but it's really hard when it comes to the core on your business model, because it means that you as a founder are opening up too massively and being able to proceed change on a daily basis. The purpose. The crowd economy creates meaningful experience and shared value, meaning you have to give not only an externally driven purpose, meaning I need money, but you need to give a soft factor. And the soft factors are mostly driven by humans. So it's a team, and it's a purpose why people really should be part of your endeavor. It must be valuable, and it must be shareable, and it must have a shareable value. and then you have those people in your boat. The platform. Normally, if we talk about Germany, we as Crowdsourcing Association represent 187 platforms out of 220 in Germany. So in terms of relative numbers, we are the ones representing nearly everybody. In terms of absolute numbers, we of course are very small. However, the learning is, it doesn't matter which platform you really choose, because you are generating the buzz on the platform beforehand. So even if you have your own crowd, you can start your own. So companies like Tilt, which is a US company, are eager now in order to generate you as a centric part of your endeavor and not using a platform as an intermediary. So the platform is just a medium to interact. So don't get fooled if some platform is pitching you to be better than the others. All platforms have their USP, but at the end, they're just intermediaries for your product. The participation. So co-creation and participation are emphasized in the crowd economy, and communities take an active stake in crafting positive futures, which is also very, very, very hard to do in a practical environment, because it means that even before you really go to market, you have to be open for change all the way. Normally as a founder, you have your idea, you have your business plan, and you just hit it. And everybody who is saying anything against this, you said, no, I want to do it this way because it is my life and this is what I want to do. The crowd is crusting that. It's really telling you, think about the other angle, and you have to be open for that. It's really hard, but it gives you the power of the crowd and the productivity, because the crowd economy fosters faster, cheaper, better, and more efficiently in resources in any purpose. And if we would have here a couple of the CEOs of the automotive industry, they would shake their head and say, yes, that's it. However, it's very hard to reproduce within my large organization, and it's more a strategic decision than anything else, and how we could look at it. And we checked it out and asked large organizations, why don't you do it? It looks easy. You have all the gold. Pick it up, print the coins, make them happen. And we researched it, and we found out that the main obstacle is the problem, what we identified as turbulence risk. So what is turbulence risk? Turbulence risk is a very human thing. It's that if I have a position within a company, I have a small secret around it. And I don't tell anybody what I'm doing the whole day. And I have a huge fear that the crowd could be better. So I'm sticking to what I do, and I'm fighting on what I'm doing. And this transparency risk, which is then a turbulence risk, is affecting the whole department and the whole company. And at the end, it breaks companies. Look at Nokia. What happened to Nokia? We all had this nice Nokia phones. They were robust. They had an exchangeable battery. They were fantastic phones. However, nothing happened to them. And a friend of mine, a lady called Pia Erikonheimo, was the first crowdsourcing VP at Nokia. However, what really bad is timing, because they hired her 5 months before they went down, which is, of course, is a little bit of an aggressive change when you want to open up traditionally closed innovation systems to open innovation. But she tried, and the beauty of it, out of Nokia, and then I end that story about Nokia, Jolla, which is basically the new Nokia, came out of this group of open innovation people, and they were successfully crowdfunding a new mobile phone and a tablet. And if you have a chance to go to Helsinki, because it's a Finnish company, you will see that 80% of the people there have a Jolla phone. So it proves the crowd is very, very, very demanding, but also giving you a lot of confirmed feedback. So if we know how the crowd economy works, then of course we want to define when does it work. Now we know it works, but when the heck is the crowd really engaging? What is driving them to engage? Why is, like a Componista, why is it that a hotel where all banks are saying, no, this hotel is out of the league, it's lying somewhere in the rain, it has 15 hectares, it has a nice golf course, but no, we cannot finance it because, it's not a seminar hotel, it's not working out. Why is it that a crowd can leverage 7.5 million in equity-based money for that hotel, that they can go back to the bank and get the money? Why is it that an internal earplug, an earphone, from a guy who is crazy enough to quit his job at AKW and saying, I'm here the VP, I earn literally about a couple of $100,000 a year, I want to go out and make my dream headphone. Why is it that the crowd is giving this crazy guy, even before he produced any of those headphones, 3.5 million and bought 16,000 units? It's because they know about the engagement moment. And this is it. It looks, of course, always super easy, but the difficulty is inside. So when you normally start a crowdfunding campaign, and if you normally read the books about crowdfunding, they will tell you, if you have enough community, then you can make it. Meaning if your peers, if your friends and your family are large enough, if you have thousands of Facebook fans, thousands of Twitter followers, then you can make it. Unfortunately, forget about it. These are the phase one candidates, how we call them. These are the ones who bring you to a point of attraction, just as making you happy, but brings you to a stuck moment in a very short term of time at any platform. So let's say you want to raise 100,000, and these guys are giving you over time 25. But it's an all and nothing, and it's over 100,000, it's fine. If under 100,000, you will get nothing. So how do we get through phase two? And phase two is basically happening before you even start. So when we consult startups and they think about doing a crowdfunding campaign, we say, think about starting it in 6 to 9 months, because this is the time we need to prepare to be ready for phase two, because phase two will come. This is where we do road shows. This is where we speak to the bloggers. This is where we stand on stages. This is where we do the hard work on the street, talking about one-to-one relations, talking about our things. And we have to prepare those. We have to pre-invite the bloggers and the journalists and so on. So it's basic work, which is not only time-consuming, but very, very expensive in some cases. So going back to Bragi, he invested 250,000 in the preparation for his campaign in order to raise 3.4 million. And this is the miracle about crowdfunding that I wanted to disrupt a little bit. It's not that you have an idea and you can sell the crowd everything. It's that you have an idea, but be prepared to go through phase two. So let's say you're at Kickstarter and you have phase two managed. Then at some point, something magical happens, which is what we call the engagement moment. So this is when the crowd out of the individual platform, meaning Kickstarter in that case, is lifting up and have an all crowd in effect. So everybody wants to be in the race. Everybody wants to have your product. And then you start smiling, and then things happen. But you have to come to phase three, which is harder than you think. Once you understand that graph, you can make everything right. But once you ignore it, there is, and these are statistically proven numbers out of Kickstarter, there is an 86% chance that you fail. All right? So you want to make your work beforehand knowing that now. So we asked the guys, of course, because you're traditionally in Germany, failing is not really good, but we love people who fail, because everybody loves a winner, but we really like the people to ask who failed. And we asked them, what happened after your campaign failed? So normally you would expect, I'm out of money, I'm out of conscience, I will hang myself. This is a normal reaction, going into depression. But no, not in the crowdfunding world. So we asked, what will happen? And they said, the failure of my campaign discouraged me from continuing the pursuit of my idea. Strongly disagree. No, I stick to my idea and I think it's great. I will continue to do it. I completed the project despite failing and meet my goal. And I can continue to pursue the idea behind my project, yes. Which means that we have fighters out there, that these people are people who really fall down, stand up and say, you know, the crowd really taught me a lesson, and now I think I know how to do it. And as we learned prior, the crowd are eager to continue investment. So even if you really failed somehow in terms of numbers, the crowd is still there supporting you. And that's about it. Thank you very much for listening. If you want to learn more about crowdsourcing, crowdfunding, and crowd innovation, just quadruple this crowd here. We have 600 people gathered out of small, medium-sized enterprises with partners like the EU Commission, the City of Munich, and the Industrie- und Handelskammer every year for the crowd dialogue. So come on by and learn more about how small, medium-sized enterprises and industries can be disruptive, involve the crowd through innovation, sourcing, and funding. Thank you so much.